Mi gente, we are back with Garza, Gaitan, and the game, and we have an extra Garza today. He's back. He was with us a couple episodes again, but a special welcome to Daniel Garza Jr. Daniel Garza Jr., how are you holding down? How's it going?
Good, man. Good. Some exciting topics.
By the
Exciting
way,
topics.
by the way, Wadi, I avoided naming him Junior porque es castellano, and in el castellano there is no Junior. So I'm not trying to be pedantic. I'm just, it's Daniel E. Garza, but whatever.
You and your political correctness, Daniel. I mean, like, can I just have my freedom of speech, man? If I want to
I'm
call him
sorry,
that.
man. I see to you,
You know
sir.
what? Let's just Daniel. Do you identify as a junior or do you not identify as a junior here? What are
No,
your
no, no,
pronouns on the
no.
junior?
Nobody calls me Junior. I've never gone by Junior. I've never
Uh,
been referred to as Junior.
I
But
got it.
whatever. I get it. It's fine. Doesn't bother me.
All right, it's just me mirroring myself into others because I am Wadi Gaitan Jr. My dad, Wadi Gaitan, did add the junior. He's not as
Yeah, I mean,
politically
you take a little
correct.
pride in it. There's nothing wrong with that.
There you
I
go.
take pride with it. It's
Yeah,
also an
it's
easier
nice.
way that if you're a Starbucks and you tell somebody order for Wadi, they kind of just look at you real quick. And I'm just like, you can write junior. It just makes it
Yeah,
go
it's
a
easy.
little bit
I mean,
quicker than
sure,
it
if you
does
want to
there.
be Anglo adjacent, you do that, man.
Okay, all right. Daniel instead of Daniel. Coming after me. Come on.
Perdón, Daniel, señor, perdón.
Daniel. All right, you guys. Like Daniel said, we had some pretty good topics today.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about everything but about extortion camps. ¿Cómo es the concentration camps that they
Extermination
had?
camp.
Extermination camps. Thank you, Daniel. The extermination camps
You were
that were
close.
found in Mexico. A really shocking story being reported across Mexico, New York Times, CNN here in the US as well. But we're also going to be talking about the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. What's really in the balance? Why is the right and the left paying so much attention to it? We're going to be talking about Snow Woke and Disney, the actresses and actors that they had in the agenda that they had on the screen, but also off the screen. And then we're going to be looking at the reports coming out of Tesla's completely being burned. But we're going to go deeper dive into how the left tends to approach the problems and the disagreements that they have with people. So let's kick it off, focusing here on Mexico shame bomb. And again, this news coming out of the New York Times. It's really shocking and tragic. Mexico has uncovered multiple illegal camps used by the cartels to dispose of the victims. This is really something that highlights the brutal reality of organized crime across Mexico. It's really raising concerns about security, but also it's raising a lot of concerns about the government response and how it's impacting, these local communities. Daniel, what would you say that this discovery, one, says about the situation of crime, of organized cartel crime in Mexico, but two, what does the government response in this case also say about the situation?
Well, it speaks to the level of depravity that the cartels have reached here, and it also speaks to even though the current Mexican president Claudia Sheinbaum has been trying to avoid how much it's connected to the indifference that was shown to the cartels by Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the previous president of Mexico, same party, Morena. And so what's happened is that when this was discovered, this extermination camp in Jalisco, they found about almost 300 pairs of shoes. They had backpacks, bones, human remains, teeth, everything, right? And so you had this massive littering of evidence that this was an extermination camp. There was ovens as well, where they had, of course, disappeared the bodies. And so what happened was that there are these mothers, Wadi, they're called madres buscadoras, searcher mothers, who have been looking for their children who have disappeared off the face of the earth. And it's gotten so bad that they actually have created a support group of hundreds of these mothers across Mexico. And so they go to this site, trying to find desperately some kind of piece of evidence, that their child, ended here, right? Or could still be alive because it was recruited by the cartel, but trying to find a piece of clothing, a backpack, something, right? That would tell them that. Well, so what ended up happening was that the Sheinbaum administration ordered that this camp be bulldozed, and literally they covered over all the evidence that was there, trying to avoid the stigma that this was an extermination camp, almost for pure political self-interest, so that the scandal wouldn't blow up, but it did blow up. In fact, the social media went rampant about, the conspiracy theories, there's long suspected ties to the cartel by the Mexican government. The media, the Mexican media, the national media, like Carlos Lorete Mola, which is a very preeminent anchor of Mexico for Televisa, started to report on it. Verastegui, you had just a bunch of personalities, right? And so how did Sheinbaum react to this? So she started targeting the people that were posting social media, and her daily meetings in the morning called La Mañanera. She started attacking these folks, and she started trying to discredit the mothers, that what they saw was not true, that don't believe your lying eyes, that there was no evidence, and that these are not extermination camps. They were campos de adiestramiento, training camps, for the cartels. Even though her director of basically the equivalent of Homeland Security, Harfush, confirmed to the media in that mañanera, in one of those mañaneras, that indeed there was torture that occurred on that site, and there were murders of these kids who were recruited but refused to do the bidding of the cartels, were eliminated, and still she wouldn't recognize it. The New York Times called it extermination camps. Media across Mexico. And so she has done everything to target the mothers, the social media folks, the opposition politicians, all to again, out of pure trying to protect herself. And people are wondering, why don't you target the cartels? Why are you wasting so much energy on these other folks, who are desperate to, find some kind of information about their children? It's just an incredible story. Yeah. It's unfolding as we speak. Mm-hmm. It could be the end of Sheinbaum.
But so what? But my question is, why though? Like, what's the upside in her like trying to defend this so much? Why not say, you know what? Maybe there was something going on here. What? It's almost like she's.
So, do you remember when Harris put out that her first sort of slogan, that this was about joy, this was about being happy? She's done the same thing. She put out a tweet that Mexico rates 20th or something in the happiest country in the world, as this was occurring, basically saying, just be happy with the country that you have. Don't worry about what's happening. So what she doesn't want to do, Daniel, to answer your question, is to stigmatize Mexico, that it's a cartel nation, right? That it's led or controlled by the cartels. And so she's doing everything in her power to try to diminish voices that lend to that narrative. And she is doing what she can to promote Mexico as this happy place, where it's this incredible society where there's absolute peace. And she's trying to defend the philosophy of Andrés Manuel López Obrador that he called abrazos, no balas.
Well,
Hugs, not bullets. It was a failed strategy, and yet they're still trying to claim it.
Well, because you're saying it's she's trying to cover it up and whatever. I haven't heard anything about this on Twitter at all. I've seen nothing, so it's working, right? And I'm on Twitter all the time. But what I have seen about her on Twitter is that her approval rating is like 91% or something. Yeah. Is that also fake? Just like her trying to cover up that this isn't happening? Is it all fake, like just kind of?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, on Twitter, if you're not part of that algorithm, if you're not someone who searches typically for Western Hemisphere kind of issues, or Mexico issues, or Sheinbaum issues, or Morena, this ain't gonna come up, right? Yeah. Whatever you're into, that's what they're gonna feed you, right? So, but if you put in Sheinbaum, if you write in on the search Jalisco extermination camps, you're gonna see, you're not gonna believe your eyes, right? And as to what's happening in Mexico, and the people are not going to be quiet about it. This is not like in the past. She's not going to be able to manipulate the media. People are angry over this. Angry because you're not dealing with the problem, which is the cartels. You're focused on everything else. You're using up energies on trying to stifle voices, on shutting people up, on quieting the opposition, on blaming others, and scapegoating, when you should be focused on the cartels. And here's the interesting part about all this, Daniel. It's Donald Trump. It's because of tariffs that she's done anything to amp up her efforts to try to mitigate the harm and the damage that's being done by the cartels. It's because of Donald Trump that she turned in 29 cartel bosses. It's because of Donald Trump that she has increased the level of security and searches on the border. It's because of Donald Trump that she's found now these factories of methamphetamine, of fentanyl. And that's the fascinating part about this. It's not her own media or the folks, the mothers from Mexico who are the victims of this. It's because of pressure from Donald Trump.
But that's such an obvious winning issue, right? Being hard on crime, clearing out the cartels. Like, I don't believe her approval rating is 90%, but you know whose approval rating I do believe? Bukele, and his is like 90%. And what is he doing? He's leaning into rooting out all the criminals, all the crime. Even Trump is sending, our worst over there. You'd think she'd like see like, hey, the people like this. They want safer Mexico, cartels getting hammered down. Why not just lean into that? I don't
here's
really
the
get
fundamental question, now that you bring up Bukele, that people are asking on Twitter who are from Mexico. Do you think that if Nayib Bukele was put in charge of eliminating the cartels in Mexico, that he would get it done? Yes, exactly.
Immediately.
So why isn't she doing it?
Yeah, it's a complete mistake from Sheinbaum. Look, her approval ratings have gone up previous to this, I would say. A lot of people thought that she took an approach that was very different than like Colombia's president, very different than Maduro. One where like she was trying to still sort of show that she was a leader of her country and wasn't going to, por decir, to be bullied with President Trump, but at the same time, paying attention to him and, cediendo en ciertas áreas. So I think Mexico sort of saw that they had someone at the table that was talking with this president, unlike Petro, who was completely won over, right? Like in the sense that Trump beat him down with the tariffs. So I think her approval ratings was up. This is such a big mistake, in my opinion. She is the topic, like Daniel was saying, where she could really even elevate her profile even more. It should be very simple. One, honestly, she could easily say, this was not my doing. This is not something that started, at the beginning of her presidency. This is clear evidence that it's not on her hands, in the sense that her party and the previous government, which I know it's allies, but I'm saying she could clean her hands from her personally, and she could step up and say, I'm changing the direction of the country. I'm changing our approach on crime. I'm changing our approach on cartels. Look, I was shocked. This is a new story for me, similar. I guess my algorithm doesn't have it as well. But when I read this story, I read both the CNN piece and the New York Times piece. The amount of detail of the amount of kids, women that were killed, some of them possibly burned, some of them acuchilladas, sort of cut into pieces. I mean, this is stuff that you don't think it's reality. The stuff that we only see in sort of horror movies.
Here's the thing about that, Wadi. It's been going on for quite a while now. This is just sort of a scene where you have a massive manifestation of assassinations and deaths, right? Which is an extermination camp. But they've been killing kids on buses, on kids they've recruited up and down the border area in the state of Nuevo León, where I'm from. They found similar sites, but at a lesser scale. This has been going on for a while, and that's the frustration that Mexicans are feeling. Why don't you deal with the situation? Why don't you go directly at the cartel? You know who they are. You know where they're at. And yet, they flim and flaw. The thing is like, when you try to manipulate the message, the narrative, when you try to hide and cover up, oh man, that's what really upsets people. And that's what's happening.
It's sad that we're seeing it in Mexico, and we see it here in the US. I think it was last week or the week before that, we talked about Mirka de Llanos, her calling out, really, and not even just calling out, just really reading what the US has said about the situation in Mexico, and then the left completely distorting her message and trying to really drive this campaign against her. Why can't we just look at what's going on, call it as it is, and call of those who have campaigned by saying that they're going to make our lives better, that they're going to make the lives of the Mexican people better, and hold them accountable for what's actually going on? Because we're pointing out the negative things happening in Mexico doesn't mean that it's a dislike of Mexico, the country, or el pueblo de Mexico. It's a dislike to the bad things and the bad people that operate within the Mexican country or within the Mexican people. It's not painting with a bad brush. That's a mistake that I think the government right now, Sheinbaum, is doing. It's a mistake that the left within the country doing, and also the left here in the United States. Many of who the folks calling that are doing this are Hispanics. They're doing it against Hispanics, and they're covering other Hispanics that are doing the wrong in this case. So it's a story, like Daniel said, that it's going to continue to develop. We'll continue to cover here. It's not the last for sure. Sheinbaum is at the beginning of her presidency. She's going to have to continue to deal with these issues, hopefully with solutions.
Oh yeah, people are
one of the other topics that we have, shifting over back to things we're seeing here in the United States, really has been Disney's Snow White, or Snow Woke, as many people are calling it. It's the remake that has sparked a lot of controversy. There's a lot of critics really arguing that the film goes, very far beyond the original classic, and it's essentially not the same. It's not the fairy tale that folks grew up watching. It's a remake that many have said is pushing a disjointed, politically driven narrative that really sacrifices the storytelling for social messaging. And Daniel, quiero empezar contigo a little bit of, there's a lot of backlash to Disney in this space. What are the criticisms here? Why are people calling out the movie in this space?
Well, they took an American iconic classic, right? The first of its kind that was created Disney, put them on the map, right? It was the Snow White. It was the original cartoon. And they took this cartoon, and not only did they like horribly mangle the storyline, but they wokeified it, right? No more is the male, the hero that comes in and saves the day. They made her much more empowered, a girl boss, and you had a star, or the star of the movie, in this case, Rachel Ziegler, bratty, self-entitled, woke, very presumptuous of who she is and what her standing in the world is, and basically talking down to half of America that they are racist, fascist, for being supporters of Donald Trump. Basically threw a bunch of shade on MAGA people on Twitter, shows the side of Palestine against Israel. So she just did
the movie, the witch, if I'm not mistaken, Gal Gadot is Israeli and has been very supportive and very vocal that Israel was attacked on October 7th and that Israel is justified for defending itself. So even within, when the main character stood out, was also essentially insulting her co-star in this space.
Yeah, Daniel, I don't know if you have a perspective on this, from how somebody of your generation sort of took to her.
Well, the thing though, Snow White, that's $1 billion IP right there, right? It's a layup. Like Disney's been churning out these live action movies and making $1 billion on all of them, right? Even like Mufasa or whatever. So I think I don't mind so much about the wokeness, okay, fine. We already kind of just deal with that. But at this point in time with media, you kind of expect it, right? The problem is it's a genuinely bad movie. It's the lowest rated movie all time on IMDb. I mean, I'm sure a little bit of that's maybe like they call it review brigading, where people come in and just give it 0 stars or 1 stars or whatever to like tank it. But I mean, the Rotten Tomato score is bad. Apparently, it had a lot of production issues. Like originally, they were going to hire Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. They were going to hire 7 little people, like actual actors, right? That's a good job. That's good work for those people who anytime a job comes up specifically for a little person, other than what like Tyrion Lannister, there's not a lot of
far between.
Yeah, there's not a lot of high profile acting gigs for those people, right? So you think, okay, they're going to find the 7 dwarves to cast for this role, but then you have Peter Dinklage, Tyrion Lannister, come in and say, I thought we were past this. We don't hire based on our dwarfism or whatever. Like, are we still doing this? So Disney went, and the budget had already kind of been ballooning at this point. Disney went and casted like the literal DEI parade of people. You could see like the leaked images from like early on. It was like a black girl and a little Asian guy and a white woman and a short white guy. And like,
The
the actual
Mexican
DEI circus, right? So then the images leak, and everybody goes crazy on social media. Like,
outrage.
this is ridiculous. Already off on a bad foot. This is before Ziegler even said any public comments about, her, pretentiousness around the subject, right? It's already, they're saying that Snow White's dead in the water. And they had to reshoot, and they got CGI dwarves, which costed a ton of extra money that they didn't originally plan on spending. Instead of just hiring, regular, little people that
Exhausting.
would have been perfect, right? So they spent all this money on CGI for the seven dwarves, and the budget like ballooned like crazy. So I think it ended up being like 320 million or something, and not including what they got to spend on marketing and all the media budget, which apparently Disney cut or ahead of time because they knew like this is dead. We don't want to spend any more resources like trying to market this thing, like really going for it like a media push, because they knew film was bad, the budget was inflated, the main actor was or actress was basically cancer at this point, like toxic. Half of America was already like totally out. They didn't want to see it. Gal Gadot is an awful actress. Apparently, her performance is like her worst ever, which is saying a lot because she's had a lot of bad movies. She's
Wonder
not a
Woman.
good actress. Yeah, well, Wonder Woman, but that was like,
He did all
that
right
was
in
like
Wonder Woman. Yeah.
that was like a flash in the pan. Wonder Woman 2, another like horrible bomb, like bad
Oh.
reviews. But anyways, I think this movie had been in production for a couple years, like multiple years, right? This was like in the peak woke, Me Too, BLM, whatever, where it was okay to still make this stuff. So we're seeing, I think, the tail end of the woke era of Disney, because even Disney, even like they had like a trans character in a TV show that they totally scrapped a couple weeks
Yeah,
back.
this was after
And
the run-in with DeSantis in Florida, right? Where
right.
they had
And they had a Christian character in one of their newest TV shows. It shows her like actually praying. So I think Disney's realizing the tide is turning. Trump won the popular vote. Okay. Like the Christian families go out and see these movies. Okay. Like that's what you should really go after, right? Because they had a couple bombs even last year. And I get the sense the pendulum is swinging back, and Disney's starting to realize, okay, if we want to make money, we got to make movies people want to see, right?
Yep.
So this Snow White, I think there was like the blow off top on DEI woke, trash from Disney. I
Getting.
think
It's a
the
read the
tides will
room
start to change.
moment for Disney. Read the room of who your audience
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
An audience, I think Disney is one of those brands where it goes generation from generation, right? I can talk about sort of the Lion King that I saw, right? My sister's kid can talk about Mufasa, his introduction sort of to the Lion King. And what I don't understand is to me, even from the beginning, because I mean, The Little Mermaid was one of those movies that the live action one where the character was switched from a white girl with red hair to a black girl with red hair, and just like the why. What I think is this is very unnecessary. Like you can find ways of telling new stories and elevating people from different backgrounds. I thought the movie Encanto, which is the story of the family in Colombia, very fascinating tale. I mean, like a brand new story. It wasn't based on of another series. Did very well in the box office. So you could feature someone who's Latina, someone of color, without having to go and switch the characters that folks grew up in. There is, in my opinion, a right way of approaching, por decir, diversity and a diversity of storytelling and of narrative that reflects the audiences. But I think they just failed to completely read the room. And it's look, it's the tactics of the left. Disney fell into that. They fell into the pressure of people saying, let's change the characters because it's oppressive, right? Like, why do you have to switch the white redhead Little Mermaid, right, for the black red-haired Little Mermaid? Why can't you just do a separate movie that elevates a black character? It's because one is oppressive. It's because one is a victim and is not featured enough. So they have to switch it. I think they were, again, pressured too much by the left and they fell into it. And two, they didn't really understand their audience, or they probably didn't take the time to go out and understand their audience. They're facing the consequences now. And I think I agree with Daniel. The tides are turning. I think they're going to go back to
They lost too much
basics
money on too many bombs already. Yeah, it's time to
Well,
rotate it back.
I would say, that some, changing or creating entire other storylines do work, like you said about Encanto and like the Blue Beetle. It's just like a Latino kid who becomes a superhero with superpowers. Created a whole, new hero for that. And that's terrific. I think that's so. Why take an established storyline and mutilate it, right? And destroy it. But I would say, before we leave this topic, on Rachel Ziegler, I hope this is a lesson learned for a lot of kids in Hollywood that are, up and coming stars, to be much more responsible with their words. It's like, yes, of course, you are free to express yourself and you have your own opinions. But when you're so when you're doing it under the banner of Snow White and Disney, you are beholden to the investment that they've made in you, the trust that they have put on you to represent them well and to represent the storyline well. You don't trash, a classic movie by the person that's paying you, right? Which was Snow White. She trashed, of course, which is very popular to do. The patriarchy and called it weird and the whole thing. And so basically what you're doing is you're trashing the work of past generations, and you're doing it under the banner of the company that is paying you. So just be much more responsible with the words that you say, because words matter. And in this case, words have massive consequence for a company like Disney. I'm not justifying Disney. They hired a bunch of DEI folks and created DEI programs, and they plastered that DEI stink all over their product, and now they're paying the price. They're pulling it back, like Daniel's saying, but you still have an obligation to be responsible for the company that is paying you.
Yeah, 100%. Well, another live action movie, if we can call it, is the battle for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. There's an election coming up this Tuesday, just days away. It's really a battle that described differently by the left or the right, but everything from voting rights, redistricting, potential election-related cases for 2026 to see how people are kind of voting, turnout rates, and the possible ideological balance of the court. I mean, we've really seen conservatives and liberal both say that there's a lot hanging in this space. Daniel, I mean, what would you say? Why is this such a highly contested race? Why are so many people paying attention to this in Wisconsin?
Well, there's a few dynamics that are at play here. One is that you have Susan Crawford, who is the liberal left-leaning candidate, and you have Schimmel, Brad Schimmel, who is the center-right leaning conservative, original intent kind of judge, right? Who's going to uphold and honor the Constitution as written, as intended, while the one on the left is going to operate with a live constitution, both at the state level and the federal constitution. So you really have liberal versus conservative. That's one. Two, whoever wins will tilt the scale of the ideological scale of the actual Supreme Court of Wisconsin. So it'll either turn conservative majority or liberal majority. And then, of course, you control the agenda if you have the majority. And of course, you will win out on a bunch of decisions, because it's almost getting predictable, Wadi, as to how you're going to vote sometimes. And it's a sad sort of dynamic that is happening across all the judicial branches across the state, where you can already predict how somebody's going to vote based on, are you going to interpret something with original intent, or are you just going to go off on whatever the latest woke sentiment is, because it's you politicize everything, and everything is politicized, and it's just horrible. But another point to this is that she got caught in an email selling basically her predetermined vote to redistrict the map, where the left will flip two congressional seats in Wisconsin. It's all over the internet, where she is actually inviting people to come over to this event that she's going to be a part of, to talk about how they're going to redistrict and flip these seats. You can't do that. You can't have predetermined arrangements, and so that speaks to her character too, and how of course inherently unethical it is. But what that would do, of course, is that we know how tight Congress is right now, that they're winning, or they're approving legislation on a vote or two right now. And so if you were to flip two seats in Wisconsin, you have the majority at the federal level and in Congress, at the U.S. House of Representatives. So it has national implications as well, this one Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. It's just fascinating. And unfortunately, It looks like she's leading in the polls. And the last thing I'll say, Wadi, there was a poll that came out on Newsweek yesterday. It showed that whites are 5% plus on Crawford, the left-leaning judge, that blacks were 83% for Crawford and 0% for Schimmel. And the other 13 were undecided.
Undecided.
How do you have no blacks voting for Schimmel? It's almost impossible. And Latinos are half and half. It's 50-50. It's just fascinating, how these things break down and how much of a swing vote the Latino community has become.
Yeah, we're becoming a very powerful, even more demographic, but in places like Wisconsin, right? Texas, Florida, it's almost, you know the power there, but in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, it's highly growing. Switching over to Daniel here. I mean, a lot of the people are also looking at the young vote. Look, historically, young folks haven't really come out to vote on non-election years. I mean, this isn't even a midterm. This is just months after we just had an election where young people did turn out, and young people actually turned out for the conservative candidate at a higher rate that they have in the past. What's kind of your prediction here? I mean, do you think young folks are paying attention to the Supreme Court race? The ones who come out, what are they going to vote on?
How much money have they spent on this race already? Isn't it some crazy amount? Like,
yeah, 13 million a month just for Crawford.
Yeah, so I mean, they're what? They're probably crossed the $100 million mark already, right? Because I remember
on both sides, yeah, both sides are spending heavy on it.
Total spent, yeah, probably
well,
over $100 million.
But let me say first though, now that you mention it, 80% of what Crawford has raised out of state. It's way lesser.
Yeah, the stakes are high. Because I remember being a kid, it was a big deal, like a really big deal, that Obama was going to spend $100 million for his presidential campaign. You remember that?
Nothing
like it
nowadays.
it was like a Time magazine cover story, right? The $100 million whatever. And now you have Supreme Court races in Wisconsin. Like, what are we talking about right now? Like, that's how crazy it's gotten. Where like we're so like optimized on where money needs to be spent, on which races, on which people, how to tip the scales, or which voter blocks to target, or like how the social media plays into parts, or the demographics. Like, oh, the black, don't even bother wasting time with the blacks. We got that vote locked up. Or, oh, Hispanics, we can earn this or earn that. And I think the reason you're seeing more interest from the youth now is, the main reason, more than anything, it's entertaining. It's super entertaining. Like the Trump race with Vance, and when Kamala was who was she gonna pick for VP, and then the numbers come in. It's so fun. It's so interesting. I went for like a 10-year gap where I didn't really care about politics at all. Like around after Trump won, I just stopped caring. Like, I checked out, right? And now all of a sudden it's like, like with Biden, he's too old, and is he going to drop out, and who they're going to put? Like, that was the best drama of last year. That was better than any TV show that came out. It's incredible. So, and then with the youth, you see the Twitter, like the memes that come out on politics, on politicians, on specific races, like the JD Vance memes were incredible. When they had, he had all the different faces, and he looked like a clown or a baby or a kid, or like different historical moments they like superimposed his face. Like, that's fun. And it's funny. The people on the left, they thought, oh, look, the young people, they're making fun of JD Vance. No, it was the exact opposite. We were like, he was becoming like iconic, like, because they love him, and he leaned in and he embraced it, like he did the Leonardo DiCaprio, like, hey, that's me. So I think youth people are getting more interested because it's culture now. It's part of the culture. Politics and what's happening with social issues or presidential races or Supreme Court. It's like Trump was the what do you call it? Like the gateway drug for like young people to like be interested in politics, right? And they get passionate about it, and they argue about it, and they make TikToks, and they persuade or influence. And they hear podcasts like Joe Rogan is always talking about politics now, and you can't escape it. It is culture. And I think that's why, like, imagine 10 years ago telling people that Supreme Court race in Wisconsin was going to spend over $100 million, and people were going to be so interested. What are you talking about? But there it is. It's culture.
Well, it's, the what's interesting fact about the Ohio Senate race with Bernie Moreno, they spent more money in that race than the 2000 presidential, all of it. Which
Yeah,
is
500 million, I believe, half a
yeah,
billion
which is
dollars.
fascinating when you think about how much is being spent. And Daniel's right. The interest that that they take, and a lot of these people have a lot of charisma, a lot of personality, so they do make it fun and entertaining. This latest one with this Crockett congresswoman from Dallas, I believe she is, how street she's becoming, and how vulgar and vile, I think, is like, wow, is this the effect now that politicians are going to have on this younger generation?
So
We
is
should
that
not be
real
modeling.
though? Is that real or manufactured? Because all of a
I think
sudden
it's
I can't escape her.
manufactured,
She's
but
everywhere on
yeah.
TV, on
But to
Twitter.
your point, they're trying to create interesting personalities that can appeal to young people, but they take it too far because it's not real. It's not genuine. You
Yeah.
can tell it's cringe because that's not who she is. And that's not how she started, but that's what she's become. She's cosplaying a street level politician to connect with folks, who are,
Yeah.
common everyday folks.
Did you hear
So
about where she went to
it's
school? It was
horrible.
like the nicest prep school in Texas or something, in a prestigious
Exactly.
college, and she had affluent
She's an
parents.
elitist.
And
Yeah. She grew up privileged. Just stop, please.
but I was just trying to do like music videos, and she's cussing all the time, and like
Dios mío.
little snaps whenever she's. And I will
She,
say though,
she,
I thought when she called Greg Abbott Hot Wheels, I thought that was funny. Like that was funny. Okay, because if somebody on the right did that, the left would be. Yeah, I don't want to be the party that's like chippy
no,
and
no, but the problem
it's
here is the
it was
hypocrisy,
he
Daniel,
even
right?
embraced it. He thought
Yeah,
it
it's
was
the
funny.
You're the
hypocrisy.
party that set that rule that you can't make
Yeah,
fun of handicapped people, and here you are doing it.
Yeah.
You can't condemn, the Republicans, or Donald Trump for having, of course, insulted that reporter who had a disability, and then here you go doing exactly the same thing, but it's okay because your intention is a good one. So I get you. It is funny. It's like they uh but look at it for what it is. Straight line hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think, look, this is a good segue into our last topic of the podcast. And it's really the approach of the left towards when they don't like something. Look, right now we're seeing a lot of people vandalizing, burning Teslas. You've seen everything from videos of people getting caught, with their keying the cars, but there's also if I'm not mistaken, in Las Vegas, if I'm checking my notes, in Oregon, someone shot over 12 times, a dozen times, into one of the Tesla dealerships. People putting in flames completely the Tesla's cars. I mean, it is out of control. And these are all folks from the left. And what I really want to talk about here is like this trend that we see from them, that when they disagree with someone, they don't want to have a debate on policy. They don't want to have a debate on ideas. What they want to do is silence the other person. They want to punish the other person or even destroy. And like we're seeing this when back in the day when they destroyed cities, when they vandalized businesses, when they're vandalizing Teslas. I mean, even shutting down college campuses to block opposing voices. People like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk have had events canceled because of major protests or of blocking of the event, or even canceling comedians who their dreams was to like host the Golden Globes. Speaking of Kevin Hart, public figures. But I mean, and this continues to be a trend. This isn't something of the past. I mean, Daniel, what are you seeing here? Why is it that the left sort of resorts to these tactics, which are completely out of play, and kind of goes through the hypocrisy we were saying earlier, where like they're greater than thou type of thing, right? No, I am without blemish, and you guys are the ones that are doing X, Y, and Z. But then when you see how these reactions, I mean, it's a complete play of hypocrisy.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Either Daniel.
when yeah, when conservatives boycotted Bud Light, what did they do? They just stopped drinking Bud Light, right? They didn't buy it, and it was effective. Their stock price went down, and they had to like totally regroup because the weird trans guy they had like totally alienated people that didn't want to be part of that anymore. And then they started making commercials with like Peyton Manning and Emmett Smith, and then I got like Shane Gillis and like Post Malone. They had to like totally shift.
Yeah.
They adjusted, right? Because like okay, these people did not like that. They stopped buying our product. Our actual like real consumers, people who actually buy our
Lesson
stuff, and it's
learned,
hurting
right?
us. right? It's a financial hit, and we gotta adjust here. And sure enough, they did, right? They got away from the weird trans guy, and now they have, Peyton Manning doing kind of cool commercials for them, right? So then, like, here you have Tesla. Um, what are they? What is the left doing now that they don't like Elon Musk anymore, and they don't like electric cars anymore? Apparently, right? They're like actually committing like real violence and like acting out and being insane. And then you had like Tim Walls brag about Tesla stock going down, which is like genuinely evil. That's an American company. That's one of our greatest American companies of all time. That's a company that people in his own state have shares of, on their pensions or 401ks or whatever. And you're excited that the stock price is going down. Like, are you an idiot? And you would never you would never see somebody from the right draw a trans flag on somebody drinking a Bud Light out of anger. Like that's not a thing. We don't do that. Okay. We hit them where it hurts, right? We actually protest and stop buying, and they feel a financial impact, right? But Tesla stock now, it's like bouncing back up because sure enough, they actually do make great cars and people still like driving Teslas, right? So the the reaction from the left, it's almost like you said earlier, it's like cringy, right? Like it's like over the top. It's like immature. It's irresponsible. It actually hurts, Americans, because it's people who have owned Teslas for years that had nothing to do with Elon Musk, and you're attacking them personally. Like what did Tesla the company do? The founder is eliminating fraud and waste from the government, and you're upset about that? Like, I don't know. It just
Daniel,
bad
what do you
optics.
make? Daniel, what do you
Well,
make of the fact that I can't think? I mean, I may be wrong. There probably is somebody out there, right? I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, but I can't think of the Democrat leaders who have stood up and called on these people to stop and to completely disavow it, and to call on their party to stand up against it. I can't think of that Democrat that has. I mean, there might be the one out there, but that the
I don't know
leadership
if
has
there
stood
is.
up
I
and
think they're
disavowed it.
actually stoking this is what they're doing by continuing this bad poisonous conversation or this narrative that Elon is evil and a Nazi, and anybody that you disagree with or who disagrees with you is a fascist and a Nazi. And that's not working out for the Democrats, by the way. But there's now been quite a pattern here for quite a while. In the sense that of course you had BLM that was out there vandalizing, burning buildings after, of course, what happened in the death of Floyd. You had Antifa, and all they are is just these well-to-do, affluent kids that don't have a job, angry at the world, angry at themselves because they do nothing purposeful, and so they're out to wreck America. And look, again, violence, attacking people, assaulting people with a red hat. You have anarchist organizations on the center left, the pro-abortion radicals, the pro-environmental radicals, who destroy paintings and you know um, treasures, the of the world, means nothing to them. They're not considerate people of societies. They would light it with a match if they could, because they're so resentful and have not achieved anything. But yeah, you're seeing what they do with Tesla. Now, this is imposing their will on a society. This is imposing their will because they don't have the strength of their ideas that they can persuade people based on that, on the merits of of the reasons of what they're trying to achieve. So they're out there now swatting conservative voices, where they send SWAT teams on a bogus call that somebody has been shot in this home. Get there now, and entire SWAT teams show up at an innocent person who's asleep with their family, and it is an absolutely horrific and dangerous situation when you have guns pointed at you and you open your door, right? And people telling you to get down and follow their orders or you get shot. This is playing with the lives of people, for pure political interest. That's domestic terrorism. There are folks that are stopping people in Teslas, pulling them over on the side of the road to make a political point. They are keying cars and creating malicious mischief and vandalism. There's nonstop lawfare and threats against people who they disagree with. Rocks, bricks, Molotovs, vandalism. This is now their narrative. Physical violence, vandalism. It is out of control. And again, street violence for political ends, to me, is domestic terrorism. Period. And the thing about that, Wadi, though, what upsets me is we have to be a society where we're tolerant, where you have to listen to other folks and what they have to say about other issues, because you just might learn something. You know, it's like nobody believed a certain group of folks when they were saying that there was evidence that COVID came from, you know, the China lab. And that matters, you know, the origin point of these things, that there was no Russian collusion, and that these 51 intel directors were lying to us about that, and that somehow they had proof. And Adam Schiff said, you know, I'm going to show you all kinds of proof, and you never showed nothing. And of course, you know, the Biden laptop, you know, the media never believed anybody, you know, who was saying that this is legit, this is true. The voices who were discounted turned out to be true. All I'm saying is you're not always right, and we need to have open and honest conversations about, you know, how we can move forward as a society. But when your tactic, your strategy is violence and vandalism and a Molotov, you will shut down discussion faster than anything, and hopefully this society will ostracize you, if not, you know, arrest you and put you in jail where you belong.
Yeah, we should definitely want to be a country where we can have a dialogue on ideas, a true debate. It can be a heated, passionate debate. These are things that matter. It shouldn't be about resorting to violence or silencing the other. To kind of try to finish on a little bit of a funny note, I did see a meme on Instagram of a Cybertruck, a Tesla Cybertruck, that at the end said, at the back of the Cybertruck, it said Toyota. Please, I identify as a Toyota.
Self-preservation.
So he's surviving. The Cybertruck, again, said, I identify as a Toyota, so do not burn me. It's funny to see. Good luck to that Cybertruck on not getting burned.
Terrible. You live under intimidation. That's not the way to live.
100%. All right, folks, this has been Garza Gaitan and the Game. Make sure to subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, X, Instagram, on all of the above. So make sure to stay tuned. A special thanks to Daniel Garza for joining us on this special edition, this special episode. Stay tuned. He'll be back. And stay tuned for next week on our upcoming episode.
All right.